You good now?
It's trying to load it, but there it is. I see it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I can change the resolution so that's a little bit faster
So
if you want. Um, yeah, let's see. If we look at sort of the beginning of the day today, and we go to that spot that you were just talking about, which is right here. All right, so first off, I mean, obviously you saw this green ball, right? And this is what we're talking about. You got short somewhere around here, and then it came down, and then it whipped back up, right? Hello?
yeah,
Yep. Okay,
correct.
cool. Sounds good. So essentially what I would be asking is like what happened before, right? And how do you interpret what happened before? The market opened at 6:30, somewhere around this area, and then a bunch of sales happened, and then the market only got so far given all of this volume. And you probably, I don't know, why don't you explain to me, like if you were looking at this, you probably saw, okay, there was a bunch of sales, and now we're at a spot where they started selling it, which maybe is a good opportunity to get back in short, which is definitely a good play, right? You saw this green
Exactly.
ball, try to fade it, and it only gave a point or two. And I think it's a good play. You have, if you get in right around this area and your stop is a point, you have a great risk reward ratio because you have potential sellers that will defend their positions, and you have a potential also seller who got maybe like it could have been any of these guys that threw away their position right here, even though the sizes don't match. So that's probably not my first thought, right? These are all 500s and this is a 600. So I wouldn't think that's one of these guys throwing their position away.
So we could rotate back to that 7650 area.
Sorry, can you say it again?
I thought we could rotate back to that 7650 area, sort of in the middle of that lower big red ball.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing that happens, kind of how I would read this one, would be that this was exhaustion, or it's like the ending of a move. And around this area, that would have confirmed it, but then we traded down, which I think is confusing. Usually that doesn't happen. You'll see these red balls at the very end of a rotation down, or the green balls at the top of a rotation up. And this is a super tight range, right? Maybe we'll scroll over to the right and find a different time where this happened. But here I just wouldn't be considering these as being necessarily ending moves. And again, today's OPEX, so it's super confusing, the tape, to begin with. And that's why I don't like trading OPEX.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think you did anything wrong here. I think that was a good trade, and hopefully you had your stop right above this, and then you were wrong, and that's fine, right? Then trade it up, so be it.
So I actually did not put a stop there, and I ended up adding up at that 8250, 8275 area,
Okay.
hoping it would come back to that 7950, which it did not. And then I scratched the.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not what you want to do here, because let's see if we can find a good example of what I would like to call these like ender moves. So it usually looks like these are a little too small, but it usually looks like this. You'll have, or at least this is one way that it'll look like, because you have consecutive in a row red sales that happen. And usually it starts with a larger one. So it's like large, small, small, small. And then immediately it'll reverse. It can do this where it'll dip a little bit further down, but then it'll reverse and then it'll continue. And that's usually, again, you don't want to be trading, you don't want to make a move through this area. You want to make your move around here. Once you start seeing these greens coming in that are starting to hammer the offer. And they usually look like, little, like rapid fire, one after another. And that's a great risk reward as well, where you will just enter here or here if you're a little late into the position, but you're watching this happen. And also you have like this sort of this absorption that happened right here, where you don't have any buys, but you just have sells that didn't move the market down. And this one that's 122, which should have at least maybe given another tick or two, but it didn't. And then we just bounced back up. So there's all these different ways that you can trade the tape, but you just have to be kind of in tune with it. And it takes a while to watch this and really get used to it. Let's see if this one was an ender. Yeah, so this was a great example of what you were trying to do earlier. Very top of the move, you don't get any movement back up, and it just comes back down immediately. And it's a large order.
Where do you like to enter on those?
Sorry?
Where would you like to enter on those typically?
So this is a super fast trade. Ideally, this is going to be really hard to enter right away because you'd have to have your finger on the trigger and just send the order right away. But ideally, this would come back up, test it, and this is where you enter right here with a very tight stop. Maybe you give it a point, and then it should come back down. It doesn't always happen, right? But it's a fast trade. You're wrong very quickly. And then if it works out, you're going to get a pretty large move down. So this one, you'd probably end up chasing it somewhere down here. And then you're probably not at a good risk reward ratio, but it's still a trade. This is just so hard.
Is that an ending?
Yeah, this is what I would call an ender.
Right. What about as you scroll to the right, those three red ball down near 81.50? Yeah.
This is probably just sellers trying to push the market further down, is my guess. Let's see what's to the left here. So you have this big red seller. The way that I would look at this is, if you're already in a short here, you want to see price trade through this line right here. And let's see what happens. I'm not sure if it even does. This is so ugly with OPEX. Usually you don't get all of these random, you do, but there's usually a little bit more. It makes a little bit more sense. But anyway, the idea is that you would want to see this under this level, and then if it was an OPEX, I'd be thinking, okay, we're going to get a good rotation down. I don't know where the low of the day is, but maybe target that. And this cluster right here is what I was talking about, where you get a large one and then you get consecutive smaller ones. So you got this large 417, a 320, and then you can't really make the 200 out. But this looks like buyers throwing away these are stops essentially. And then usually this is also a good setup to then get long. And again, you don't want to just throw yourself into a position right away. Usually what I like to do is wait a little bit to see what happens. And then once you start seeing price, this will happen very quickly, typically. So, but you'll see these like rapid fire greens that will show up on the tape, and that's your entry long. And even if you get in right up here, your stop is somewhere down here, or maybe you can use the line as your stop right underneath it. So, but with the tape, you just have to be on your game all the time because it'll happen so fast. Yeah, and I don't see anything interesting over here besides maybe these green buys over here. But you can see, like, if you zoom out, you see how it's just rapid fire through here. I mean, it's over the course of, let's see, 902 to 906, 907, so over 5 minutes. But once you see this, it really gives you the confidence that there will be continuation in your long position. And same thing will happen on the short side. It usually looks different on the short side. You'll get more larger orders pushing the market down, but on the way up, you usually see these like just look like little bullets on the tape. So I don't know if that helps. Do you have any questions?
It helps. Yeah. Ideally, where would you be getting in on that reversal? Just show me that again.
So if you're really paying attention, you've noticed that this happened, right? You've noticed big order, medium, smaller, and let's see if we zoom in here. You have about a minute from this order, from 8:59 to 9:01, to really see what happens and get yourself ready, because it could very well come down, right? Get yourself ready for potentially maybe a cross above this 417. Because if this is a real seller, they will try to defend their position. If this is somebody getting stopped out and then the market's just going to reverse back, you can get in and be pretty confident that it'll just continue up, or you'll be wrong very quickly. So ideally, you can either just set like a buy stop right here at 79.50 with a 1-point stop, or maybe 2-point stop, and then it either works out or it doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, I think one thing that is hard with folks that are trying to start to read the tape is you get a ton of noise, right? So this looks like tons of bubbles, tons of green and red, and your job is to read that story and swift through the noise and look for setups that you've seen over and over again, like, you know, this ender move, stop runs and stop runs, and then stuff like this right through here is what's confusing sometimes, because you don't really know what to make out of this, and that's what can make it difficult. I mean, it's not super clear.
Why are those like that little, again, that red cluster around 758, 759? Why is that? How is that different from the ones that you see later? That was the ender.
750. Let me just look right through.
Or 759. Just that. You know, you're coming down and then you kind of hit that cluster of red, bigger down further. Yep. There, yeah.
Yep.
How's that different from the ones we were talking about?
So this one compared to these ones over here?
Yeah.
So what I like to look at for these stops is large, smaller, and smaller, and smaller, and smaller. And this is all around the same size, which sometimes can just mean that they're trying to push the market down. And I don't know if you watched my video that I made the other day on the FOMC.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so you had like these continuous, 200, 250, 300 that were pushing just the market down over and over. And sometimes, those were more spread out on the FOMC, but sometimes you'll get them like this, and they did push the market down for, I don't know, maybe 3 points or so. But then you can start seeing like right here, there's someone absorbing right through here, push it up, comes back down, absorbed again, and then they keep trying, and then eventually they let up whoever was absorbing right through here, and either they threw away their position, or they finally decide to step in.
Your stream got cut out.
Oh, really? Hang on. Okay. So, yeah, if you can see it now, I mean, you could tell that there was someone here absorbing these cells, and then they finally gave up, or they lifted, let the market come down, wait for somebody else to get stopped out, and then they stepped on the accelerator. And that's kind of the story that I see through this whole area over, an hour of trade. I think it's really hard with OPEX, but I'm guessing if that buyer is still in the game, which I'm guessing they are, we're likely going to see more upside later today.